there are different tariffs for different nations, what they call reciprocal tariffs. And they say they've gone through the numbers. They've looked at not just the tariffs that other countries around the world are charging the US, but also what they call non-tariff barriers, so other things. And they've worked out, by the way, Canada, those Mexico-Canada tariffs might well come back, so we might well start from that position. But reciprocal tariffs might push all of these bars, or will push all of these bars up considerably higher. So just look at how the picture of trade and tariffs in the US has changed dramatically as a result of these measures which are coming in the next few days. And just to give you a few highlights of what we're talking about. So you could look, for instance, over there at China. So China, that's a 34% reciprocal tariff, but it takes the total amount, provided that goes on top of the existing tariff, it takes the total amount up above 50%. And you're talking, when tariffs are going above 50%, that makes any trade very, very difficult and far less likely to happen. So that's China, but you can probably see here, Vietnam as well. And the point here from the White House has been to say, listen, lots of Chinese goods going into the US, but also going through, being Vietnam and Cambodia as well, being conduits for goods to go to America. And the point here from Donald Trump is that the US wants to reindustrialize. And so it's all about trying to make things domestically, but
Right, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and all glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakakodash, that belongs to the elders and apostles of great news and I rule well. Salutation to the Aki, I'm preaching the truth to the four corners of the earth in sincerity. Is the brother Yakal coming to you with another lesson, those in the be edifying truth spirit. And as you can see, tariffs are in the air. And as the title of the video, they shall hit the whole. Because what taking place is reciprocal tariffs is amplifying the percentage on the tariffs already there. And what is a reciprocal tariff is when the country, which is America, is reciprocating for, like damage done, or they feel hurt, or they feel like, that these nations doesn't respect them. But what they don't understand is that the Lord is taking away their power to instill fear into people. Babylon is ultimately coming down from the high tower that they once was on, and they're coming down from a stature where the scriptures say, come and sit in the dust. There is no throne, because the dust represents confusion, right? They're going to be confused as to how this happened. We have Satan on our side. We have the powers of the world. We have all this army, right? We have all this power. How it is, this is happening. Come and sit in the dust. Because the Lord proclaimed it to happen. And then the Lord said, there is no throne. Right? So, I'm going to the precepts one time. Right, this is the book of Revelation. Chapter 17 and verse 16. And it reads, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, because we already know what the beast is, right? And the 10 horns, the beast represents the European Union, America, and the 10 horns is 10 powers, 10 nations, right? Let me go back into it. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, right? And shall make her desolate and naked, and she, Salakia, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, because these 10 nations, they're going to be the ones, and there's more nations now, but the Lord was describing it, right? These are the nations going to be responsible for America's downfall. They're going to be responsible for burning her with fire, where it says, circle her round about, right? They're gonna hate the whore. That's the whole punchline. They hate the whore. Why they hate the whore? They hate the whore for years worth of deceit, years worth of of sanctions, and years worth of this blatantly disrespecting their country. Now you see we live in times where nobody don't even respect America anymore, because the Lord is putting it in the heart of the other kings of the earth to be angry, to be bold, and he also making them powerful. Powerful in a sense where America not just going to get up and do something out rash without thinking, because they know they're gonna be annihilated, and eventually they would. But pride within America, making them say, "I sit a queen." You understand? So this is it. They're gonna hate the whore for all these things. Right? Let me see if I get a precept here. Right, this is the book of Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 7. It says, Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Right? Drunken of her wine, her philosophies, her agreements, all these stuff, all through all the years, because it was making them rich. All the trade deals that the other countries doing and coming to America and selling it off. Nearly everything made in China, and look at the tariffs on China. It's high. No wonder they form an alliance, right? The BRICS alliance, where if you don't know what it is, you can look it up. Where a group of countries is now having their own infrastructure, where they're not dealing with America anymore because now they are enemies, right? But America think that it's 1920, where they could just influence and do what they want. But we live in a time where Yahweh Hashem Yahushai has declared the end, right? And as the Lord declared the end, all we see is crumbling. The book of Jeremiah, not Jeremiah, Isaiah 14. Right, Isaiah 14, I'm not sure what verse. But I'll get it. Because we're dealing with America crumbling, right? Right. Verse 11, Isaiah 14 and 11, it says, Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the pomp represents their pride, right? Their pride is brought down to the grave, right? So it's down to the grave, right down, right? To the grave, and the noise of thy voils, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee, and worms represent decay, right? When worms try to take anything, it's because it decaying or it dead. You understand? And worms spread under them. Think about it in a imagery form. Worms spread under the whole of Babylon, and worms covering them, meaning that they crumbling as we speak, right? And then I read verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Right? Because they weaken the nations. Therefore the nations are mad. Therefore the nations, they have a perpetual hatred. That is why the Revelation 17 that we just read, and they shall hate the whore, and eventually burn out with fire. Right? So this is what we see in here with these tariffs. Spiritually, you're not looking at it as, oh wow, there's that. We're looking at it as there's a potential of bringing a war. War, well, that's the only thing you could see from it. War. Because we see the nations, when they showcasing their weapons, how it goes. All these joint nations that are in alliance against America, they showcase their weapons, and they actually be marching together, showing their strength. You understand? And by them doing this, America thinks that they go bully these other smaller nations. But what happens? Here comes the bigger nations who hates the whore, right? The bigger nation now who hates the whore. Here comes them as a god, and the scripture even say that. What about Ezekiel? The book of Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 7. And it reads, Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee. So it says, this is This is saying to be prepared, right? Basically, when the scripture says let the weak say I am strong, that wasn't talking about people that weak. Let them say we strong now because we do some push-ups. What happened was the push-ups that was being done was nukes being bought. You understand? Nukes being bought and distributed. Hypersonic missiles being bought and distributed. They were gathering up tools, weapons of war, weapons of mass destruction was being bought and distributed. So that is the preparation that you see in here in verse 7. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, and it says thou and all thy company. So prepare yourself and all your company, right? China, you know, all the other nations, Brazil, all that in allied with them, who going against them, going against America, be prepared, right? And it says that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them, meaning that be a guard. So if they think they're gonna bully the smaller nations, right, you're gonna be right there. Hence the Ukraine-Russia war. If America think they could enter into Ukraine and take that land so that they could be closer to the Russia land, that they could strike them when they're ready, they lie. Because Russia eyes wide open. The Lord opened their eyes to see that you cannot come close to us. We will war and burn Ukraine to the ground before that happens. This is exactly what is being said. Right? Yeah, and Isaiah on this. Isaiah 38 and 7. You know, the upper. So it says, be a guard unto them. Being a guard unto the other nations. I'm gonna get the next precept that I quoted earlier. Right, Jeremiah 51, and I'll start from 1. Yeah, we can go into this. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, and verse 1. It says, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will raise up against Babylon, which is America, and against them that dwell in the midst of them, that rise up against me, a destroying wind. What is that destroying wind? These ICBM missiles. And the Lord reference missiles or destruction as wind, right? And I will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her. And we know that that fan not going into no Lasco, but that fan not going into no fan sitting in your room, right? That fan going into other nations, because when you light a fire and you fan it, it raises. So Lord said not destroying wind, which is these ICBMs, and the other nations with their ICBMs are fanning the fire, right? So continuing, fanners that shall fan her and shall empty her land. Because how does a fan empty a land? Think about it. There's only destruction and fire could do that, right? Empty her land, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. They're going to circle her, because they're going to come up as one. And this is something where when you read the book of Psalms 83, right? Psalms 83 is a representation of what they did unto us as a people and how they came together to do it. So the Lord is just when we look at it and balance. They came together to put us in slavery, right? And they came together, they did it in agreement, all of them. So now they go in agreement all together to deal with Babylon, right? So it says, continuing, it says, right, against him that bended let the archer bend his bow, against him that bend it, again, Babylon. Babylon have a U.S. embassy in everybody country. Also, he has a missile silo or a missile pointing at other countries that they deem a threat, right? Against him that bend it. So he bend his arrow first and aim it, right? And plus two, if you want to add this in, he also afflicted, because the scripture says he keep it not at home. So that means he was constantly troubling people in their own country, right? It says that against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, which go back to his missile defense system, because the word brigandine go back to our armor, or you could say a shield, right? But how does a country shield itself? A big nation as America shield itself, right? Through his missile defense system. They have missile defense system, but they don't have an iron dome as Israel does. And even so, if they do have an iron dome, that can't work because their judgment is already predestined, right? The Lord already predestined their judgment, so it is going to happen. You understand? Whether they believe it or not, whether you, whoever listening to this video, believe it or not. But the brethren, we know that the brethren in the spirit, in the right mind, we know that this is going to happen. Right? So continuing, marriage. Right, I'll continue. Against him that lifted up himself in his brigandine, again his brigandine go back to his missile defense system and his army, all the things that he thinks that could defend him. He lifted up himself. He's prideful in it. Yeah, my things could never fail, right? And spare ye not her young men. Destroy ye utterly all her hosts. Everything in Babylon, when them missiles them hit, is going to be destroyed. Every single thing down to the ground, right? Thus the slain shall fall in the land of the Chaldeans. Chaldeans is another word for America. And they that are thrust through in her streets. For Israel had not been forsaken, nor Judah of his power, right? So this is a nice representation of the Lord not forsaking us. And I just make the representation of the Psalms 83 where they came against us. So this coming out here is the upper, right? For Israel had not been forsaken, nor Judah of his power, or of the Lord of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Flee out of the midst of Babylon, and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. And I'll read verse 7 for edification. Behold, Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand. Before, Babylon was the golden city. Everybody wanted to run to Babylon for opportunity, for work, all sorts of different reasons, right? You're that golden cup. Anybody go there, rich. Even the merchants, they understood this, rich, right? It says, had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. And they make all the earth believe their philosophies. They say, yes, let us put the Israelites in captivity. Let us do this. Let us make our money paper. Let us forget the gold. You know, they made the earth drink. Everything they said, everybody was following in it. Just following, right? It says the nations have drunken of her wine, wherefore the nations are mad, right? Now the nations mad. The nations pissed. Like, what the fuck we was doing all the time, right? We was always going along with these wicked devils, and now they understand that they're devils, because there are a lot of nations coming out and saying it. Before, they think that the so-called white man, they used to be like, this white man is no nice and so, but everybody understood that they are devils. They are the worst thing there is on the earth. And in 1,000 years after Yahushua returns as king over everything, they're going to be annihilated off the earth, no more in existence. And that's what they actually fear, right? It says, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. And the Lord knows that she's not going to be healed. So initially, this is the Lord having a sense of humor, saying to take balm for Babylon. You know, just like when the Lord said, give Moab wings, that he may fly away from the destruction to come. And that was the Lord using his sense of humor. You understand? Because we can't run from this destruction. Ain't no healing this time when you get this. You understand? Like before, Babylon was destroyed. what the scripture say, we shall return and build the desolate places, rebuild. They did return and they did rebuild. Right? That's the Renaissance time. They did return and they did rebuild, but now ain't no returning and rebuilding. Right? This time when they get put down for good, because righteousness is immortal and we're gonna rule forever. So ain't not gonna be no tariffs, no bullying. I have one more precept before I close. Because as I mentioned, tariffs and bullying, the scripture come in my head, the hammer of the earth. I believe it's Jeremiah 50 and verse 23. And it reads, how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder? Right? The hammer. Reason being called, they call America, it's called the hammer of the earth because they pong everybody into submission. You know, you do it all else, do it all tariffs, do it all what's the next word? Sanctions. Right? How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken. A snare is a trap. The Lord say, I have laid a trap for you, Babylon, and you are taken, O Babylon, and thou was not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. And how did they strive against the Lord? By forming that alliance in Psalms 83, right? And before that, when they persecuted our people in Jerusalem, the scriptures say, for 3 transgression of Edom. And I feel that one gonna be the last one. Bear with me here. I will use the book of Amos. This is Amos chapter 1. And I'll read from verse 3. It says, thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they have threshed Gilead with threshing instruments of iron. I don't believe there's the precept I'm looking for. Alright, verse 11. This is it here. Amos 1 and 11. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, which is, Jacob and Esau, right? So Esau did pursue Jacob, right? Constantly, he always was against us. Anywhere we are oppression, they also tell the other nations to oppress us as well too. That's why the other nations also are going into slavery, right? Oppress us, put them in captivity, do your way you want to them, right? And anywhere we are, they oppress us. Anyhow they could, they oppress us. Read the book of Wisdom of Solomon, the 2nd chapter, right? Because he did pursue his brother with the sword and did cast off all pity. Listen, he didn't have no pity on us. Babies, guitar beat, lynching, you name it, right? And his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. That little bitch. He kept his wrath forever. Right? I'm going to continue here. But I will send a fire upon Teman, which is who? America, again. But you could say the Teman is another word for Edomites, right? Which shall devour the places of Bozrah. And Bozrah is another name for America. Right? Just like when the Lord say, he will have dyed garments. Who is this coming from? Bozrah. In dyed garments, bloody. Right? It was the Lord. So this is the hammer of the earth being cut down, the bullies of the earth being cut down, these wicked people being cut down. And it's about time too. Because really and truly, they need to get a little licks. They've been on top for a while. And it's time for Jacob to rule. When you read 2nd Esdras, it says, when shall be the parting asunder of times? When shall be the handing over, in other words, for someone else to rule, right? And when Esau is down, that means Jacob is risen, right? So Lord's will in this lesson was edifying. Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai Bashem Kakodash, thou will unto the elders and apostles of great men soon I rule well. Salutation to the Akim preaching the truth to the four corners of the earth in sincerity. Shalom. Shalom to the Aquats. Listening and respecting their husband as well. Shalom.